A billionaire's mother disguised herself as a janitor to test who was worthy of her son. This story will leave you speechless and inspired. In the busy streets of Chicago, there lived a wealthy woman named Helen. She was the widow of a successful businessman, and together they had built a huge company. But despite all her wealth, the only thing that mattered to her was her son Michael. Helen had raised Michael with strong values. He had studied overseas for years, becoming a smart and polite young man. Now he was coming home to run his late father's business. But Helen had one big worry: who would Michael marry? She had watched how certain women acted around rich men. They looked beautiful but cared only about money. She refused to let her son fall for someone like that. So Helen came up with a clever plan. She would pretend to be the cleaner at their own company. Nobody would know she was the owner's wife. This way she could see which woman truly had a good heart. One Monday morning, Helen walked into the office wearing old, worn-out clothes and carrying cleaning supplies. The moment she stepped inside, the room went quiet. Then came the mean laughter. "Who let this old lady in here?" sneered Jessica, one of the office workers, turning her nose up in disgust. "Maybe she's lost and looking for the soup kitchen," added Ashley, making the others giggle. Helen stayed quiet, pushing her mop across the floor. She was used to respect, but now she was just a poor cleaner to them. However, she noticed one woman wasn't laughing. Grace, a young office worker, sat quietly at her desk, focused on her work. Grace didn't look at her with pity, just normal respect. Helen watched carefully. She had found someone worth studying. The next day, Helen was cleaning the hallway when a sharp voice called out, "Hey, old woman! You missed a spot." Helen looked up to see Ashley with Jessica, both looking amused. "Didn't you hear her?" Jessica said rudely. "Are you deaf?" Helen swallowed hard and went back to work, but Ashley wasn't finished. "Look how slow she is," she laughed. "We'll be here forever waiting for her. Maybe she needs help." Before Helen could react, Ashley pushed her hard. Helen lost her balance and fell onto the cold office floor. Her cleaning supplies scattered as cruel laughter filled the air. "She's so clumsy," one woman mocked. "Maybe she needs a walker." Helen struggled to get up, her hands shaking. Nobody came to help, nobody except Grace. Grace's gentle hands grabbed Helen's arm, helping her stand. "Are you all right, ma'am?" she asked softly. Helen looked into Grace's eyes, kind, caring, different. As Helen got back on her feet, Grace held her steady, real concern on her face. "Next time, old lady, watch where you're going," Ashley said coldly, then glared at Grace. "And you, why are you helping her? Let her clean up her own mess." Grace ignored Ashley and picked up the wet cloth, squeezing out the dirty water before giving it back to Helen. "Ma'am, please be careful," she whispered. Helen felt tears in her eyes. It had been so long since anyone spoke to her with such kindness. The next day, Helen brought a simple lunch to work, homemade food in a plain container. When Ashley and her friends saw her eating, they immediately started their mean comments. "What's that terrible smell?" Jessica complained. "It's the janitor's food," Ashley said, wrinkling her nose. "It smells so cheap." Helen kept eating, pretending not to hear them. Then Grace walked in with her own simple lunch and without thinking twice, sat right next to Helen. "Good afternoon, ma'am," Grace said warmly. "Good afternoon, dear," Helen replied, watching her closely. Ashley smirked. "Grace, you actually want to sit with her?" Grace's smile never faded. "Why not?" She looked at Helen's food. "Ma'am, that looks tasty. Did you make it yourself?" Helen's heart warmed. "Yes, dear. Would you like to try some?" Grace nodded eagerly. When Helen offered her a bite, Ashley burst out laughing. "Look at her eating food from a janitor. You have no shame, Grace. You'll probably get sick." But Grace simply tasted it, smiled and said, "This is delicious, ma'am. It reminds me of home." Something deep in Helen's heart stirred with emotion. Later that week, Helen decided to test Grace further. She purposely spilled her bucket of soapy water in the bathroom, then cried out as if she had hurt herself. Within seconds, Ashley and her group walked in. Seeing Helen on the wet floor, their faces showed cruel amusement. "Oh no, the poor old woman fell again," Ashley mocked. "Maybe she should quit." "She's too old for this job," Jessica added. "Please, someone help me," Helen groaned, holding her back. Ashley crossed her arms. We're not janitors. It's not our job to clean up messes. The women laughed loudly. Just then, Grace walked in and stopped at the scene, the wet floor, Helen on the ground, the cruel laughter. For a moment, silence filled the room. Helen watched closely. Would Grace pretend not to see? Would she walk away to avoid trouble? But Grace didn't hesitate. She rushed forward, kneeling beside Helen. Ma'am, are you okay? Helen pretended to struggle. My back, dear. I can't move. Grace's eyes filled with worry. She looked up at the other women. Why are you just standing there? Help me. Ashley laughed. Help a janitor? Please. Grace's face got serious. She turned back to Helen. Don't worry, ma'am. I'll take care of you. To everyone's shock, she pulled out her tissue and gently wiped Helen's face. Then she rolled up her sleeves and started cleaning the floor herself. The room went completely silent. Ashley and the others stared in disbelief. Grace, are you crazy? Ashley hissed. She's not your mother. Grace ignored them completely. She kept cleaning until the floor was perfect, then helped Helen stand up. Ma'am, let me help you sit down, she said gently. Helen's heart filled with emotion. The next morning, Helen approached Grace at her desk. Good morning, dear, she said softly. Grace turned, smiling. Good morning, ma'am. How are you feeling today? Helen studied her no fake behavior. No lies, just genuine warmth. She cleared her throat. Dear, I need to ask you something. Grace's eyes widened with concern. Of course, ma'am. What is it? Helen hesitated as if unsure. You see, I live alone, and sometimes eating alone makes me sad. I was wondering, would you have dinner with me? Just once at my house. Grace blinked in surprise. You want me to visit your home? The office had gone quiet. Ashley and Jessica, who had been on their phones, were now staring and listening. Ashley laughed loudly. Grace, you want to eat a janitor's food in her tiny apartment? Jessica giggled. She probably lives in some rundown place. Helen stayed quiet, watching Grace's reaction carefully. Grace turned to Ashley and Jessica, her voice strong. So what if she's a janitor? She's still a human being. Then she looked back at Helen with a warm smile. Ma'am, I would be honored to have dinner with you. Helen's chest filled with emotion. That evening, Grace stood outside Helen's house, completely surprised. She had expected a small, poor home, but the house was neat and well kept. It wasn't what she had expected from a struggling janitor. Who is this woman really? Grace wondered. Helen opened the door, smiling warmly. Come in, dear. They shared a wonderful dinner together, talking about life, family, and dreams. Grace never once asked about money or looked uncomfortable. She simply enjoyed spending time with an older woman who, to her, deserved respect and kindness. And that was when Helen knew she had chosen well. Because soon Michael would arrive and everything would change. A week later, the airport was busy with travelers as a tall, handsome man in an expensive suit walked out. Michael had been away for over 10 years, but now he was back to run his father's company. The moment Michael walked into the office, everything changed. Women who had been lazy suddenly sat up straight, fixed their makeup and put on fake smiles. He's so handsome, Jessica whispered to Ashley. And rich, Ashley smirked. I need to introduce myself first. Michael, however, barely noticed the attention. He was there for one reason, to honor his father's memory. But then he saw something that bothered him. In the middle of the office, an elderly janitor was mopping the floor, bent over from hard work. Something about this felt wrong to Michael. He walked over. Excuse me, ma'am, he said kindly. Why are you cleaning this whole floor alone? Where are the other janitors? The woman looked up, surprised by his concern. Before she could answer, Ashley interrupted. Oh, sir, don't worry about her, she said sweetly. She's just a janitor. She's used to this work. Michael turned to her, frowning. Used to it? His voice was firm. Does that mean she doesn't deserve respect? Ashley's face went pale, but before she could stammer a response, Grace's clear voice spoke up. She deserves all the respect in the world. Michael turned to see who had spoken and saw her. A young woman different from all the rest. No heavy makeup, no fake smile, just quiet confidence and real kindness. Their eyes met, and something in Michael's chest stirred. From that moment, Michael couldn't stop thinking about Grace. It wasn't just her natural beauty, it was something deeper. There was real kindness in her eyes, a quiet strength that drew him in. Later that day, he called Grace to his office. "I hope I didn't make you uncomfortable earlier," he said. "I just don't like seeing people treated badly." Grace smiled softly. "Thank you, sir. That was very kind of you." Michael hesitated. "How long have you worked here?" "A few months, sir." "And that janitor, you seem to care about her." Grace's eyes lit up. "Yes, she's taught me so much about kindness and treating everyone with respect." The more Grace spoke, the more Michael realized this was no ordinary woman. Without knowing it, Grace had captured his heart. But Ashley and Jessica couldn't stand watching Michael's interest in Grace grow. "I can't believe this," Ashley complained to Jessica. "She's nothing special, but somehow she got his attention." "We need to do something," Jessica agreed, "before she ruins everything for us." So they came up with a cruel plan. One evening, Ashley sent Grace a mysterious text. "Meet me at the Plaza Hotel tomorrow at 7 p.m. I have something important to tell you." When Grace arrived at the fancy hotel, she found Ashley waiting with a mean smile. "What do you want, Ashley?" Grace asked. Ashley leaned forward. "Listen carefully. If you know what's good for you, you'll stay away from Michael." Grace shook her head. "I don't even know him well. This is crazy." Ashley's eyes got dark. She slid a thick envelope across the table. Grace's heart pounded as she opened it. It was full of cash. "Take this money and quit the company," Ashley said smoothly. "Leave quietly and forget about Michael." Grace stared at the money. Her rent was late, her little sister needed school supplies, her mom needed medicine. This money could fix all her problems. With steady hands, she pushed the envelope back across the table. "No." Ashley's face twisted with anger. "You're making a huge mistake, Grace." Grace stood up. "No, Ashley. You're the one making a mistake." As Grace walked away, she didn't know that someone else had been watching from across the restaurant. Hidden behind dark sunglasses, Helen sat drinking tea. She had seen everything, and now she was certain Grace had passed every test. But Ashley wasn't done yet. The next morning, Grace arrived at work early as usual, but the moment she stepped inside, she felt something was wrong. People were staring, whispering, some were laughing. Then she saw Ashley standing in the middle of the office, holding her phone up high. "Everyone, listen to this," Ashley announced. She pressed play, and suddenly Grace's own voice filled the office, but it was edited and twisted to make it sound like Grace was bragging about Michael liking her. The office erupted with laughter. "So her innocent act was fake," someone sneered. "She's just like the rest of us but pretending to be humble," another added. Grace's face burned with shame, but she held back tears. She wouldn't let Ashley break her. Michael had just finished a meeting when he heard the commotion. He stepped into the office space, confused. "What's going on here?" he asked firmly. The laughter stopped immediately. Everyone pretended to work. Michael's sharp eyes looked around the room, then landed on Grace. She was standing there, stiff and silent. His eyes moved to Ashley. "What happened?" he asked. Ashley smiled sweetly. "Oh, nothing, sir. We were just having some fun with Grace." Michael's jaw tightened, his eyes darkened. "Ashley," his voice was calm but firm, "step into my office. Now." Ashley's face went white. The entire office went silent. Michael turned to Grace, his voice gentler. "Are you okay?" Grace swallowed hard and nodded. "Yes, sir." But deep down she wasn't. Helen had seen everything from the hallway. Her blood boiled. How dare they treat Grace like this when she had done nothing wrong? That evening, as Helen sat with Grace for dinner, she spoke in a quiet but firm voice. "My daughter," she said, "tell me the truth. Do you have feelings for Michael?" Grace nearly choked on her food. "Ma'am, what? No, I barely know him." Helen studied her face. She was telling the truth. "Then listen carefully," Helen said. "These women will not stop. They want to destroy you. You must be strong." Grace's eyes softened. "Ma'am, why do you care so much about me?" Helen hesitated. She couldn't tell Grace the truth yet. She simply smiled. "Because, dear, I see something special in you." But neither of them knew that the worst was yet to come. The next morning, Grace was sleeping when she heard loud knocking at her door. She opened it to find 2 police officers standing outside. "Are you Grace Miller?" one of them asked. "Yes," she whispered, fear creeping into her voice. "You're under arrest for theft and fraud." Grace's breath caught. "What?" Before she could react, cold handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Tears filled her eyes as neighbors came out to watch. "I didn't do anything," she cried, but the officers didn't listen. At the police station, Grace sat in a cold, dark cell. How had this happened? She had never stolen anything in her life. A guard appeared. "Someone posted your bail." Grace's eyes widened. "Who?" The guard shrugged. "She's waiting outside." Confused and scared, Grace followed him out. The moment she stepped into the waiting area, she gasped. Helen, the old cleaning lady, stood there with sadness in her eyes. Grace's lip trembled. "Ma'am, I swear I didn't do it." Helen stepped forward and wiped a tear from Grace's cheek. "I know, dear," she said softly. "I know." Grace broke down crying in Helen's arms, but she didn't know this was only the beginning. Meanwhile, Michael sat in his office when a news headline on his phone made his stomach drop. "Office worker Grace Miller arrested for fraud." His heart stopped. "No," he whispered. This didn't make sense. He grabbed his car keys and rushed out of the building. Across town, Ashley sat in a fancy hotel room, drinking champagne with Jessica. "Michael left the office in a hurry," Jessica said, looking at her phone. "People say he went to see Grace." Ashley smirked. "Let him. By the time I'm done, Grace will be nothing." But as Ashley was about to take another sip, her phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello." A deep, scary voice whispered through the phone. "You have made a terrible mistake." Ashley's blood ran cold. "Who is this?" she demanded. No answer. Just the sound of slow breathing. Then click. Ashley sat frozen, gripping the phone. A chill ran down her spine. Something felt very wrong. The next morning, Michael sat in his office, his mind racing. Something wasn't right. If Grace really stole money, why didn't she run away? Why did she look so genuinely hurt when he saw her? He picked up his phone. "Security, I need you to pull up the security camera footage from Grace's office area." There was a pause. "Sir, there's a problem. All the footage from that week is missing." Michael's blood ran cold. Missing? Someone had erased the evidence. And suddenly Michael knew the truth. Grace had been set up. He had doubted her, and now he needed to make things right. But just as Michael was planning how to help Grace, Helen decided it was time to reveal the truth. The next evening, Helen invited Grace to her house one more time. As they sat down to eat, Helen took a deep breath. "Grace, dear, I have something important to tell you." Grace looked up, confused by the serious tone. "I haven't been completely honest with you," Helen continued. "I'm not just a cleaning lady." Grace frowned. "What do you mean?" Helen smiled gently. "My name is Helen Richardson. I own the company where you work. And Michael is my son." Grace's mouth fell open in shock. The spoon fell from her hand. You're Michael's mother? But why? Why were you pretending to be a janitor?" "Because," Helen said softly, "I wanted to find a woman who would love my son for who he is, not for his money. I wanted to find someone with a truly good heart." Tears filled Grace's eyes. "You were testing me this whole time?" "Yes, dear. And you passed every single test. You showed kindness when others showed cruelty. You helped when others walked away. You chose integrity when offered money. You are exactly the kind of woman I hoped my son would find." Grace was speechless, overwhelmed by everything. "Now," Helen continued, "let's go clear your name and show everyone who you really are, and who I really am." The next morning, Helen walked into the company building. But this time, she wasn't wearing old cleaning clothes. She wore an expensive business suit, her hair perfectly styled, walking with the confidence of someone who owned everything around her. The entire office fell silent as she walked through. Ashley and Jessica's faces went completely white. Michael stepped out of his office, confused by the commotion, then stopped dead when he saw his mother. "Mom? What are you doing here? And why is everyone staring?" Helen smiled. "Son, it's time you learned the truth about what's been happening in your company." She turned to face the entire office. "My name is Helen Richardson. I am the owner of this company, and I've been working here for weeks as a janitor." Gasps echoed through the room. Ashley looked like she might faint. "I did this to observe how my employees treat others, especially those they think are beneath them. What I found was disgusting." Helen's eyes found Ashley. "You pushed me, mocked me, and tried to bribe and frame an innocent woman. You thought you were hurting a poor cleaning lady, but you were actually attacking the owner of this company." Ashley's legs gave out, and she collapsed into her chair. "And you," Helen continued, looking at Grace with a warm smile. "You showed kindness, respect, and integrity when no one was watching. You helped someone you thought couldn't help you back. That is true character." Michael looked between his mother and Grace, pieces falling into place in his mind. "Grace," Helen announced to everyone, "has been promoted to assistant manager, effective immediately. And Ashley, Jessica, you're both fired. Security will escort you out." As security led Ashley and Jessica away, Ashley couldn't help but cry out, "This isn't fair." Helen turned to her one last time. "You're right. It's not fair. It's justice." Later that day, as the office slowly returned to normal, Michael found Grace sitting quietly at her new desk, still processing everything. "So," he said softly, approaching her, "my mother was testing you this whole time." Grace looked up, still amazed. "I can't believe it. I just thought she was a kind old woman who deserved respect." "And that," Michael said, sitting on the edge of her desk, "is exactly why she chose you." Grace smiled shyly. "I'm still trying to understand all this." "Well," Michael said, his eyes twinkling, "maybe I can help you understand over dinner? Somewhere nice this time, not just home-cooked meals." Grace laughed. "I'd like that." 6 months later, Grace and Michael were engaged. Their wedding was beautiful, attended by all the employees who had watched their love story unfold. Ashley and Jessica were notably absent, probably because they were still looking for new jobs. During her wedding speech, Grace thanked Helen for the most important lesson of her life. "She taught me that how you treat people when you think no one important is watching shows who you really are inside." Helen wiped away happy tears as she watched her son and new daughter-in-law dance. Her plan had worked perfectly. She had found Michael a wife who loved him for his heart, not his money. And as for the company, well, it became known for its kindness and respect for all employees, from the CEO down to the janitors. Because sometimes the person emptying your trash can might just be testing your character. The moral of this story is simple. Treat everyone with kindness and respect, regardless of their job or social status. You never know who might be watching, and more importantly, it's simply the right thing to do. True character isn't shown when you're trying to impress the boss. It's shown in how you treat the person who can't do anything for you. If this story touched your heart, make sure to subscribe to this channel for more incredible stories that will change how you see the world. We have other amazing tales about love, justice, and the power of doing what's right. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, so you never miss our latest stories. Trust me, the next story we have for you will blow your mind even more than this one. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today.